And we are live. Hey, everybody. My name is Drew, and I am a avid new hunter that can't seem to figure it all out. So we are here with Entry Point Hunting.
And I am Justina. Also, don't know what I'm doing hiking around the woods with a rifle. As Drew would say, maybe vegetarians out for a hike.
Yeah,
And
I
yeah,
think it's funny. I've been at it for I don't know 15 years, but it was never a really serious endeavor, and one of those things where you don't really get very good at it unless you put in the time and energy. So. The last couple have been increased opportunities to get out to the woods, but man, there's a lot to it. That's the part that I'm figuring out every time.
yeah, absolutely. And I guess the goal of today is to kind of chat a bit about why we have both come to this hunting realm and what we're hoping to do with our hunting lives that are ahead of us. So I didn't know that you had experience through a lifetime. Like I thought this was something relatively new to you. So maybe dive into that a little bit. Like you started 15 years ago, where and how and who got you into it?
It was my old boss actually. So he took me out for a hunt, just as like a chance to go out and hang out. And he and I became quite close, and he was a very good friend of mine. And he took me out, and we went and did some hunting. And I'm like, this is amazing. This is like grown up hide and seek. He's like, right. And so I went and I got my
More
pal and
seeking.
core, and yeah, lots of hiding. They're so good at hiding.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just got kind of into it, but it was always something that was never really at the forefront up front because I just had too many other activities and too many other things going on. But yeah, it was just once you get out there and you start experiencing it, there's a different level of connection with nature when you get out there and really love that. How about you? Where did you start? What's the origin story?
Origin story. So I have always grown up around guys and hanging out with buddies in the neighborhood and all that kind of stuff. And I grew up in a First Nations community where hunting was really prominent, but I was never part of the actual hunting. I just experienced eating a lot of game meat growing up. And about 3 years ago, I decided, you know what? This is it. I'm going to get my firearms license and my hunting license, and I'm gonna learn how to do this. And that was like a short-lived dream in the essence that like I went and got my hunting license and my firearms license, and then they sat on the shelf for about a year, and then the next year it's like, oh, I guess to hunt I should probably get a gun. So that year, the second year, I got a gun, and then went and shot it a couple times, didn't really do anything with it. Maybe wandered around the woods once or twice, freaked myself out about cougars and bears, and then got back in my car and didn't go hunting again. And then last year, I thought, you know what, if I'm going to do this, I really need to do this. And so really got into it and decided this is the year, got some gear, started listening, watching, asking people for help. And I actually discovered that becoming a new hunter who has not grown up around hunters is really hard. There's a lot of shit that you just don't know that you don't know. And some people can be very secretive about it. So it was a pretty steep learning curve. But this year I ended up going out into the woods and spending about 30 days out in the woods, just putting miles on my boots, playing hide and seek. And yeah, they're damn good at hiding.
Yeah, it's so interesting where growing up, like hunting was never a part of my family at all, and even gating meat wasn't really something that we did. And then going out and trying to learn this on your own and realizing just how much is I think passed on. All my really good hunting friends, most of them have come from they hunted with their family and that was a thing that they did, and it's an interesting one to try and learn as an adult, and kind of what the impetus for us to start this podcast was okay, how do we fill that gap?
Yeah.
We've been out there. I've had mixed success. It's always a good time and I enjoy it, but how do we start to really learn all those different pieces? And you meet some people along the way that are incredibly generous with their knowledge and happy to
Oh, yeah.
help you and things like that. And I think that that's
Thank you.
hopefully where
Because without those people, I honestly have no idea what my hunting experience would have been like. There's definitely like some buddies that had been really keen at the start when I told them I was like, yeah, I'm gonna get into hunting this year, and they're like, good for you. I'd take you out hunting. And then when I actually had my hunting license and my gun, and I was like, okay, let's go. Where are we going? When are we going? They were like, oh yeah, I'm not sure when I'm going out next or whatever. And eventually I just got tired of waiting. I was like, if I wait for other people to take me, I'm pretty much never gonna go. So I started going on my own. And I actually met people out in the woods who were, like you say, super generous with their time and their knowledge. And I don't know if they would have been this way if I wasn't a female. So I may have been playing the gender card a bit, but small 5'2" woman out in the woods, and they're like, oh damn, like I feel bad for you. So here's some knowledge. Like maybe go over there or go over there. And they definitely gave me some guidance, and I have made some really, really good buddies just by running into them in the woods. And I think them taking pity on my sad, sorry ass on my way out while I was crying and being like, man, I didn't see any deer today.
It's always so interesting when you're walking around, you haven't seen a single thing, and then you go by a couple people that they're harvesting, and you're like, man, how is this like a thing? I was just
How?
right over there. I
Yeah.
heard the gunshot, but I haven't seen anything.
Oh God, that killed
And
me. Every time I was out, I'd hear gunshots and I'd be like, why? Like, I'm out here. I was out here before the crack of freaking dawn. Like, where was my deer? And then a buddy said to me once, he's like, they're probably not all shooting deer. They're probably just like bored, or they are out target shooting or something, and they're just blowing up the woods. And I was like, okay, that's what I'm gonna tell myself. I'm gonna tell myself that it's not that I'm in the wrong spot of the woods.
that's the interesting. It's the other piece is like the unwritten etiquette of it. Because if you go target shooting during season and you're out in the bush, like it's you get some aggravated people driving by somebody who's pulled over on the side of the road, like all of these little pieces where you kind of, I don't know how you go about doing it without making the mistake and learning from it. But how do
Yeah.
you kind of avoid making those mistakes and spoiling somebody else's hunt?
Yeah, that's definitely something we'll dive into in the episodes of this podcast, is like the unwritten etiquette of the woods that, again, if you didn't grow up with an uncle or a cousin or an aunt or a mom who was a hunter, who was just like, you just don't do these things, and it gets ingrained in you as a kid to just not do those things or to do certain things, you just would never know. So we'll definitely dive into that a bit in some of the episodes for sure.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited to be able to have an avenue where we can ask all the stupid questions. I know buying my rifle and going in and being like, "Yep, I want this," and just pretending that I knew what I was talking about, because I maybe didn't have the humility to just say like, "I don't know." Like I really truly don't know. I've done some research, and this thing seems like everybody's talking about it, so I'll go that way.
Yeah.
Um, I look at the amount of errors that I've made along the way and the things that I've learned. But yeah, I think having a space where, either submitted questions or just our own stupidity where we can ask people those questions and get some real answers is always so valuable.
Yeah, I definitely, when I was approaching the idea of getting into hunting, kind of decided at that point, like, I'm okay with being the idiot who asks the questions that seem so obvious to everyone else. Because at first I tried to be the like, yeah, I've done my research and like spent hours and hours reading about things, and then I'd walk into the store and be like, yeah, this is what I want. And then at some point I'd look and be like, I don't know, actually. Could you just help me? Like, tell me what you know and help me make a good decision. Like, I have so many people's opinions about what I should be doing, and the internet's opinions about what I should be getting. And honestly, like, I just want something that's going to do what I need it to do, and I'm open to the information. So I'm just at the point where if I see somebody who's doing something or seems to know more, I'm like, hey, you, can I have some help? Help over here?
Yeah, I wish I could go back and tell my starting into hunting self to maybe like not pretend like you knew everything, because I
Yeah.
skipped over a whole bunch of advice trying to think that I somehow needed to pretend that I was experienced, and
Yeah.
that
Somebody
hasn't
says
gotten the
something, you're
freezer very
like,
full.
yeah, for sure. And in your head, you're like, oh God, I really wish they knew what they were talking about. Yeah, I've done a few of those, and then eventually they get too deep down that avenue, and I'm like, actually, you lost me at the entry hole over there. I don't know.
It's an apt point to go, and entry point is a real
Yeah,
challenge for anybody getting into it. I think that was the biggest thing, and talking to other people that have come into it, and I think it's increasingly becoming popular to get back into hunting. But
yeah,
like, where do you start? And if you ask 10 people, you'll get 20 different answers.
yeah,
And I think that it's such a challenging piece to even consider, how are you going to get into this? And teaching people good hunting ethics and things, because I know, if you meet people along the way, and there's different kind of guiding principles for a lot of them, but just finding out kind of what are the best practices and the things, because a lot of it is just ignorance and errors. The
Yeah.
first animal that I ever got, I was like, oh, we're a little out of my water here. I don't quite know what to do. To put it under, definitely understated.
Holy shit, what is happening? Was probably more actually what was going on.
Oh yeah. Luckily we had cell service and we were on YouTubing how to gut a deer and how to field dress it. And I'm like, all right, we got this. I can watch
Yeah.
it. But if we didn't have that, I'd watched a bunch of videos, but there's no replacement for being out there. Hopefully this
Or
can help
having
bridge
somebody
that
who
gap.
knows. Yeah, like being able to, and that was for me a huge thing when I started was I just had never spent a lot of time in the woods by myself. Like I've gone camping and like I grew up with a dad who would like to be out in the woods, but I was always one with somebody and two with somebody who knew more than I did about what was going on and like what to do in different scenarios. So that was a huge part for me in starting was wanting to be with people that like I didn't even care if we saw a deer or got a deer or whatever. Like for me it was more just getting familiar with being in the woods without anything. Like you're with a rifle, you're walking around, you're deep into the woods, and you need to know what you're doing and where you're going. And if you, by chance, luck, happen to actually come across something that you can shoot, what do you do with that once you have it? Like, 90% of the journey is finding it, and then 10% is what you do afterwards. And that was a big thing for me was just trying to find the comfort in that and eventually you just get over some of your fear, not all of it. I think you should always have a healthy amount of fear when you're in the woods. But you get over a decent amount of it, enough to be able to keep going out by yourself. And then you pray to God that you either have cell service or you've drawn enough sketches in your phone that you can figure out what to do.
As soon as I figured out how to download videos and
Yeah.
store them as so I can have them offline, that was a game changer in confidence.
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I've often thought of that. I had a few close encounters this hunting season, which was really thrilling and exciting. But I thought, man, what am I gonna do by myself out here with this animal if this comes to fruition? Like, I've walked a long way into these woods. I'm gonna have to drag this thing out. And you listen to other people tell stories about like, oh yeah, there was no way you were dragging that out of there. And like we had to have like 3 guys pack this animal out. I was like, yeah, I'd have to be walking back to find some self service or get really good at carving up an animal for sure.
It's that like some sort of a GPS, whether spot, in reach, anything like that, where you can go and drop it
Yeah.
on there and be able to. It's like, hey, send help, good help.
Help
I need
me.
help processing.
Yeah, it's yeah, that's something else we'll dive into too. Like I'm sure we'll have an episode or so or 2 or 3 or 4 on gear because there's definitely the pros and cons to all those different things. Like, do you go with a Garmin or a Spot or a Zoleo or whatever for communication and safety to just have some sort of backup out there?
See, gear was a real problem for me because I really, I for maybe 10 years or more, I was just kind of on the surface into hunting and would get out what I could. And then I finally cleared out some time and just made it more of a priority. Unfortunately, there was also a hunting store that went out of business that year. So we'd go out
Was that
hunting
the one in
and
Rutland?
then no, that was the one that was over on the west side there. And so they had these big closing out sales, and we just like I bought so much stuff. And I bet you 50% of it has never been used because it was just useless. Like it
Yeah.
not the right gear to buy.
Yeah.
Certainly not.
Probably for camping. Like good for camping gear.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a
But
store up here in Rutland that went out of business probably like 5, 6, maybe even a decade ago. My linear timeline's not that great, but it went out of business at some point in the history. And I did the same thing. I went and bought like a boatload of gear, which has turned out to be very useful for camping, but pretty much none of it is useful for hunting because hunting gear is a very specific niche and it's very expensive. And there are many, many opinions about what you should have and what the best is, and this for that, and this for the other thing. You need to have like 20 of these because they all do different things. But I mean, yeah, we'll get into that for sure.
yeah, I think a lot of areas to dive into. We definitely asking a lot of people, what are the questions you have? What are the questions that we have? And then I think the most interesting one is going to be what are the questions that we don't even know yet, and hopefully those start coming up from some of the experts that we have along the
Yeah.
way.
Yeah. What do we know? What do we not know that we're not asking yet?
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that'll be the goal. We'll definitely cover off a lot of topics and guests. And the whole purpose of this podcast is really to introduce other young hunters or new hunters to the realm, help to answer your questions. So feel free to reach out to us if you have specific people you want us to try and reach. We will try. No promises that we can get your favorite hunting person on here, but we will do our best. We will try and answer the questions that you have, and we will pull from a lot of local experts to give us the information that you need to know when you're a new hunter to help you not only be better at hunting, but to also be a good ethical hunter and a respectful hunter to other people in the industry as well, because we all need each other in order to carry forward in this. It is a solo sport, so to speak, but it's highly dependent on everyone cooperating to make sure that the sport can continue. And I say sport, but I really mean like activity, because I'm not a huge sport hunting fan.
I think even that'll be an interesting conversation, because I know a couple of
Yeah.
people that have gone and done overseas hunts and things like that, and it's really illuminating to be able to have those discussions and see what
Mm.
it is. So always an opportunity to chat with people, see what experiences they've had, and start to get people their own conclusions based off of that experience. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that's probably a good place for us to stop on our spiel of who we are, why we're into this, and what we're going to be bringing to you over the next episodes to come. Drew, anything you want to add?
No, very much excited to embark on this journey and use the off season a little bit more effectively than previously done, and hopefully hit the season next year with a lot more success.
Amazing. Amazing. Stay tuned, guys. We will have more good stuff coming for you in the near future.
All right. Have a great day, everybody.
Bye.